Hi, everyone.
Hey there. Great to be chatting today.
We're diving into Clearing the Air by Tim Smedley, an eye opening look at something we literally can't live without clean air.
Exactly. It's one of those books that quietly grabs you because it's about every breath you take. Smedley makes you realize that air pollution isn't just an environmental issue, it's deeply personal.
Right. He starts by calling it the invisible epidemic. That phrase alone feels haunting.
It does. He points out that air pollution kills more people yearly than smoking or road accidents, but since it's not visibly dramatic day to day, we kind of ignore it. The book starts by pulling that veil away, showing that the problem is real, global, and way closer to home than we think.
Let's talk about that opening journey. He describes traveling from Delhi to London to Beijing. What's the purpose behind those scenes?
Well, he wants readers to feel the universality of the issue. In Delhi, kids go to school under thick gray skies. In London, you have parents worrying about diesel fumes outside playgrounds. In Beijing, the smog is practically tangible. Each location tells us the same story. Polluted air shortens lives, but it's also something we made through our decisions about industry and transport.
So he's framing pollution as man made and reversible, not inevitable.
Exactly. That's the hopeful part. He's saying, look, we built the systems that dirty the air, and that means we can redesign them. The book's tone shifts between alarm and optimism, always reminding you that change starts with seeing clearly what's been hidden.
I like that his writing mixes science with human stories. He doesn't just throw data at you.
Yes, that's crucial. He brings in people, children in India with asthma, cyclists struggling through London streets, and those human experiences make the numbers meaningful. It's one thing to know the World Health Organization estimates millions of deaths. It's another to picture a child coughing through morning lessons.
Then he moves into what he calls the anatomy of invisible poison.
That chapter really gets technical about what's floating around us, right? It does, but he keeps it understandable. He explains fine particles, PM 2.5 and PM 10, that seep into lungs, even into the bloodstream. These tiny bits trigger heart disease, strokes, and other chronic conditions. It's not just about what we see like smoke, it's about microscopic enemies moving inside our bodies.
It's wild to imagine those particles traveling through blood vessels.
Totally. What's striking is how small they are. A single particle might be 30 times smaller than a hair, and yet it can enter every corner of your body. He calls it a toxic chemistry set, with nitrogen oxides, ozone, and volatile organic compounds swirling around us.
And the cause is basically everything we burn cars, factories, even cooking fires.
That's right. He says our whole modern life is built around combustion, burning something to get comfort, transport, energy, which also means air pollution reflects how we live, not just how we regulate industries.
There's that part where he talks about geography, like valleys trapping pollution. That was fascinating.
It really was. He mentions how a city's physical shape can amplify pollution. A valley acts like a bowl keeping fumes from escaping. So even natural setting makes a big difference. In those kinds of places, if you combine traffic emissions and stagnant weather, the air becomes heavier and deadlier.
And he connects that to social inequality too, right?
Exactly. The poorer people live closer to combustion, near factories, or inside homes using coal or kerosene. Wealth buys distance from the smoke. Pollution doesn't care about nationality, but it definitely discriminates by income.
Let's move to history. The History in Haze chapter had me picturing old London covered in soot.
Same here. He paints Victorian London where midday looked like dusk, streets thick with coal smoke. The city learned the hard way. The 1952 Great Smog killed thousands. That's when the UK passed its first Clean Air Acts. But still, the addiction to combustion just evolved. We moved from chimneys to cars.
He kind of argues we've always told ourselves pollution was the cost of progress.
Yes, he calls it our transgression. We claimed every generation's technology was indispensable. Coal gave way to diesel, diesel to plastics, and each time we said cleaner alternatives were too costly or unrealistic. But he found records showing alternatives often existed sooner. Society just lacked courage to choose them.
That's such a pattern. He also compares different countries tackling smog, right?
He does. Los Angeles battled decades of photochemical smog before embracing tough vehicle rules. Beijing tried quick fixes for major events but had recurring haze later. His takeaway is that progress depends on civic values, whether we treat clean air as a shared heritage or as something expendable.
The phrase seeing the air as common heritage stuck with me.
Yeah, because it reframes pollution not just as technical failure but as moral blindness. It's about how we value the unseen commons around us. He wants readers to see the sky as mutual property we're all responsible for.
Then, in Cities Under the Microscope, he walks around different urban environments. That chapter felt almost like reportage.
Totally. He joins London parents measuring particulate levels outside schools, sometimes double the legal limit. In Delhi, he describes how the haze muffles even car horns, and in Los Angeles, people remember their burned allergies years when breathing near freeways hurt. Through those stories, he shows how geography, weather, and policy interact.
And cities that fix it best get their citizens directly involved.
Right. He says when ordinary people take ownership, building sensors, pressing councils, or choosing transport options, clean air change happens faster. That DIY activism becomes a social filter. It's not just governments cleaning air, communities are doing it by demanding accountability.
I love that phrase you used, social filter.
It really fits. He shows that outrage, when shared intelligently, becomes momentum. Technology alone doesn't create change, participation does.
Then we get to the human cost chapter. It's hard hitting, isn't it?
It is. He visits hospitals in places like Kolkata and Krakow, where doctors treat respiratory disease all year round. Air pollution causes lung issues, heart disease, even cognitive decline. And he emphasizes that breathing is universal, no wealth or wall can block it.
That idea of intimacy of inhalation is powerful.
Absolutely. He describes how indoor pollution can be just as deadly from cooking fuels, incense, or chemical cleaners. Women and children typically suffer most because of long exposure at home. He compares it to malnutrition. It's a domestic threat we ignore.
But there's a hopeful twist, right? Something about recovery.
Yes, that's the part that feels uplifting. He shares examples from places like Leipzig and Los Angeles, where mortality rates improved within years once emissions dropped. The human body rebounds quickly. He calls that revelation hopeful realism. When you remove toxins, life expectancy rises almost immediately.
That's encouraging, like proof that actions work.
Exactly. It turns cleaning air from an abstract goal into something tangible. Policies can literally rewrite health statistics within a decade.
After that comes blueprints of accountability. Sounds bureaucratic, but it's actually pretty gripping.
It is. He interviews ministers, campaigners, and civic officers across continents. His message, regulation saves lives only when it's enforced. There's always an invisible tug of war among industries, transport trying to dodge responsibility, energy blaming real estate. Each sector passes the problem downwind.
And he reviews different clean air laws, right?
Yes. He revisits Britain's mid-20th century laws that phased out coal, the American 1970 Clean Air Act that empowered the EPA, and similar moves worldwide. Yet many modern cities still exceed WHO pollution limits. Regulation must evolve to cover invisible threats, diesel particulates and microplastics.
So transparency becomes key.
Exactly. He argues that honest public data ignite accountability. In Beijing, activists built home sensors until officials had no choice but to share numbers. In London, parents sued boroughs for unsafe air at schools. These acts turned information into power.
And he says corporations only act once consumers revolt.
Yes, that's part of his conclusion for this section. Citizens watching, measuring, and protesting form the real blueprint. Society cleans itself by seeing itself in daylight.
Now, the final stretch innovation and the road ahead. This felt more hopeful than the previous chapters.
Definitely. By then, his tone shifts from diagnosing the illness to prescribing treatment. He talks about engineers developing city buses that emit only water vapor, electric highways powering trucks along Stockholm routes, and cycling networks in Copenhagen cutting particulate levels dramatically. Those examples show technology and urban design aligning for health.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Far from it. He calls renewable energy and smarter transport the frontier of environmental equity. It's about giving people agency to clean their own spaces. Solar and wind power aren't abstract dreams anymore. They're market realities.
I liked his line that the cleanest technology is restraint itself, not to pollute in the first place.
Yes, that's a philosophical pivot. He says innovation needs to move from inventing gadgets to redesigning behavior. Our progress shouldn't be measured by what we produce, but by what we stop polluting.
He ends with a sort of moral and imaginative appeal, right?
Exactly. He insists that the battle against air pollution is won not just by engineers, but by imaginations, having the will to act before desperation forces us. Every choice to replace combustion, retrofit industry, or walk instead of drive is a piece of collective progress.
Then, in the conclusion, learning to breathe again, he brings everything back to personal responsibility.
Yes. He reminds us that the air belongs to everyone, so protecting it is shared duty. He says our age of pollution came from convenience and neglect, but an age of restoration can arise from awareness and intention.
I like how he makes it practical. Begin by paying attention.
That's his key advice. Notice what you breathe, where it comes from, and whose choices shaped it. He believes policy victories start with millions of small awakenings. citizens measuring, voting, walking, and demanding honesty.
So clean air becomes a collective expression of empathy.
Exactly. He frames progress as an emotional as well as technical act. We invest in health we might not directly see, but will absolutely feel in our communities.
What struck me overall is his faith that change is not only possible but imminent once we care enough.
He's very clear on that. He calls air pollution a solvable riddle. The data exists, the innovation exists, what lacks is endurance. So he closes urging speed, asking how swiftly we'll choose to act.
It's poetic that he ends with breathing as a metaphor for civilization's rhythm.
It is. He says the end of air pollution could mark the beginning of something purer, a promise that humanity, having fouled its first breath, can redeem its last. That's a powerful image.
It really is. So if you had to sum up the message for someone who hasn't read the book,
I'd say it's about responsibility and possibility. Clearing the air reminds us that this global problem isn't abstract science, it's literally in our lungs. But we all hold pieces of the solution through everyday decisions and collective demand for cleaner systems.
sounds like readers walk away both informed and motivated.
Absolutely. It's a book that balances urgency with hope. You understand what's wrong, but also how fixable it is if we act together.
And it's written in such an accessible way. Even heavy science feels human and compelling.
Yes, Smedley makes complex chemistry feel personal. He transforms dry data into street level reality you can imagine smelling or coughing through. That's the power of the book. It translates invisible danger into something visceral.
Before we wrap up, how do you think this book changes how we think about progress?
Great question. It redefines progress from consumption toward compassion. It reminds us that true advancement comes when innovation protects life, not strains it. That means valuing breathable air as the first marker of civilized society.
So, cleaner air equals smarter future.
Exactly. We redesign behavior first, technology second. When that mindset shifts, everything else, from politics to urban planning, falls into place.
It's heartening that a topic as heavy as pollution can end with optimism.
That's the tone he maintains throughout. He's alarmed but not cynical. There's genuine belief in people's creativity and determination.
I guess the takeaway is that we can't wait for perfect solutions. Every small action counts.
Yes, whether it's demanding stricter local laws, choosing public transport, or just paying attention to daily choices. He urges awareness not as guilt but as empowerment.
Well, that brings us full circle from realizing the air's crisis to realizing our power to change it.
Exactly. Clearing the air isn't just about pollution, it's about reclaiming collective health and the spirit of cooperation.
Thanks for breaking that down so clearly. I feel like I can breathe easier just understanding it.
Same here. It's one of those books that stays with you every time you step outside and take a breath.
So, if anyone wants a read that's both eye opening and hopeful, this one's for you.
Definitely. It teaches you that the simplest act, breathing, can become the most revolutionary awareness.
And on that note, thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thanks. Let's all start paying attention to the air around us.
See you next time.
Until then, breathe thoughtfully.